Welcome to GearCheckGames. This is part 6 of our commentary for The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, and if you can believe it, this part is even more embarrassing than the last one.
Yay.
Is this the Dongo's Cavern?
No.
The Dongos?
It's the Dingus's Cove.
What did I say? So yeah, we got a simple block puzzle here to start things off. Some enemies, and I haven't done a full playthrough of Wind Waker in a couple years, but like I don't remember too many of the dungeons in this game being like super brain taxing. Like most of them are kind of just like this one especially. You just kind of like get locked in a room, you solve a puzzle, and then you go to the next room, which is fine on its own right, but I don't know. I find that the Zelda dungeons I tend to enjoy more are the ones where, like, the puzzle is, like, the navigation, and there's some kind of, like, overarching, like, big puzzle that influences, like, the whole dungeon. Like, Majora's Mask, in my opinion, has, like, the best set of dungeons in the series, even though there are only 4, because they all have, you know... It just feels like they take a little bit more like thought to complete. Like you don't just kind of... Here you can kind of just go on autopilot and go from room to room and you'll be fine. Great visuals though.
So I've realized something pretty interesting recently, and that's that Wind Waker actually has... Weirdly enough, it actually kind of... was the, it has a lot of similarities with Breath of the Wild, and, like, I guess introduced a lot of things that Breath of the Wild became known more for later on. Like, most obvious example being introducing a more open world where you go around and complete, like, more micro-challenges and stuff. But, some other interesting stuff, like, I think Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild, if I remember correctly, are the only 2 Zelda games with dynamic weather, like rain, that happens not like scripted. Or
actually,
scripted sequences.
Actually, sorry, not to be that guy. This happens very infrequently, but every once in a while in Twilight Princess, there will be a thunderstorm in the overworld. And like I said, it's super infrequent, but it does happen.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, it's I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've seen it, but I do remember it happening.
Huh.
Quote unquote dynamic weather.
Yeah.
But
another thing is oh, you say it.
Oh no, I was just kind of finishing my thought. You can go ahead.
Oh, I mean, finish your thought because I was going to go into something else.
It's finished, Dan.
All right, fine.
It's dead.
Another thing that I didn't realize before was the whole, like, picking up of weapons dropped by enemies and using them.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, just having different weapons to use besides the sword or, like, dungeon items.
That was cool. Yeah. Especially when you get your hands on one of those weapons that's like twice as big as Link is, like the Dark Nut swords or the Moblin spears.
Oh, the Bartishes are so nice in this game.
Yeah.
Well, the Moblin spears are really nicely animated too. Like, I guess we'll have to wait till they're on screen, but I think like the tassels on them have their own like physics and like won't clip through the floor.
Huh.
Like they're programmed to have collision with like other like collision boxes, which is pretty cool and needless attention to detail, but I like it.
So I have a fun story about this room from when I played this game.
Oh yeah?
So that door you just broke through, I couldn't figure that out for like a day.
Oh really?
I thought there was like a bomb flower I needed to find, or like get a Deku stick and catch it on fire. So I like...
Yeah, obviously you needed to break the wood planks with the sword.
Yeah. I was so confused.
But only that specific sword that the enemy carries. Your sword isn't good enough.
Yeah. By the way, so recently I've been watching some Wind Waker randomizer playthroughs.
Sorry to cut you off, Dan, but is that how you're supposed to solve that puzzle?
Either that or maybe like doing a spin attack with your sword.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Doesn't that leave you kind of dangerously close to it?
I mean, I feel like the fact that they put a bunch of things right next to the door to throw at it, that's probably the intended solution.
Yeah.
Oh.
I guess it's kind of extension of like throwing the bombs into the statues to get in here, but
yeah.
I don't know how that went.
I'm sorry, Link's face when you turned around was priceless.
Yeah, he's not super happy to be here by the looks of it.
It's because he's wearing those hot clothes.
Because he only has a heart and a half before he's dead.
Yeah. Anyway, so I've been watching some Wind Waker randomizer playthroughs. Also some Ocarina of Time ones, but the Wind Waker ones are more relevant. But, I feel like randomizer really, like, exacerbates the strengths and weaknesses of a game. Or of a Zelda game, particularly. So, like, for one, the, I feel like something that... Okay.
Did you know that was a thing?
I think I don't know. I don't know if I ever did it with those like little tiny jets, but I feel like I've seen pots get blown around by stuff, or get blown
those
upward
details,
by stuff.
man.
Yeah.
Did not have to put that in, but they did anyway.
Well, like, so one of the big strengths that I've realized by watching randomizer playthroughs is that, and the one I watched most recently was a swordless playthrough, where you just never get the sword except in the final fight because you need the sword. But Wind Waker does a really good job, probably the best of any Zelda game up until Breath of the Wild, of giving you just a bunch of items that have just a lot of different uses. Like how the grappling hook can be used to swing on stuff, but also to fish up treasure and to steal items from enemies.
Oh yeah, that last one is a cool feature.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's a novel feature. It's not like super useful, but it's just, you know, it's one of those things that like you forget you can do, but then when you remember, it's like, oh yeah, I can steal stuff from people in real time, and it's awesome.
Yeah, but like I can't really think of. But like, you know, for the swordless playthrough, like since you don't have a sword, you're using a lot of the other items for combat a lot more, like arrows and the hammer, which is actually just another. I guess it was kind of. I mean, yeah, it's just another weapon, like a whole other weapon that Link can use. Like you can defeat every boss with just the hammer and not the sword, except for Ganondorf.
Right.
And just like bombs and arrows and
just smash his face in with the big hammer.
Yeah.
The wind, it is blowing.
But yeah, it's really neat
muffled.
how just how I guess how many uses all these different items have compared to other games like Twilight Princess, where some things just have one use, usually just like in the dungeon itself where you got it. And maybe a few very specific puzzles in the overworld, and that's about it. But like, I think everything in this game has multiple uses, like in combat and in exploration and in like I don't know. It's neat.
Well, and sometimes you can kind of combine the items in cool ways. Like, this might be the isolated example because it's the only one coming to mind. But I always thought it was neat how you can use the hook shot in combination with the iron boots to like pull enemies toward you when they're too big, or like pull stuff off of enemies, or like off of walls and stuff. Like that was neat.
Yeah, and like
I've heard people complain that Wind Waker has like too few items, or that they're like too, you know, there aren't enough like new items. But like for as few as there are, like they did get a pretty good amount of mileage out of them.
Yeah, you get a lot for what you get. But yeah, and then the whole like enemies dropping weapons comes a lot more into play when you don't have a sword.
Oh yeah. Now,
yeah.
Here's where I started to sweat a little bit because I thought the rat was going to sell me a potion.
Oh yeah.
And he does, but I have to give him more bait.
He's running an extortion racket. You gotta buy more bait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's nobody else here to compete with him, so I suppose he could charge Link whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Here's a question. And I'll I guess unless you guys have anything to say otherwise, I might try this in like a later part of the game. But is this the only mouse hole where you can do this?
You might be able to in the Forsaken Fortress.
Okay. Because I've never tried it at a different one, because I mean, usually I don't buy stuff in this game, because, you know, until recently we didn't have the Wind Waker HD or Hero Mode, so there wasn't much of a necessity.
Huh.
So here I try to get another red potion to put in my bottle, and
oh my God.
Nope. And I almost bought something, but that's when I actually started reading the text and realizing, oh yeah, he's charging me for this, in addition to the bait I just gave him. So, yeah.
You mean...
I think that ultimately that kind of limits the utility of this, like, mid-dungeon shop system, is you have to waste bait and rupees.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, he shouldn't even be able to sell you bait and, Hyoi pairs inside dungeons, because, like, what are you going to do with them? Like, you want the potion. In all situations, you want the potion.
I feel like that's the challenge of this mode.
I guess. Well, maybe that's a change they made, because in the original version, I only ever remember him selling you potions. So I don't know. Maybe they changed that for this. Just spitballing though.
Compass?
So just to finish off my tangent about the randomizer stuff, I said that it showed it was great for exacerbating the strengths of the game, but also the weaknesses. Because usually, like, whenever I've seen randomizers of, like, Ocarina of Time, they've been pretty straightforward, like, not too much of a hassle. But, pretty much every Wind Waker randomizer I've watched, after a certain point, it just evolves into the runner just, like, slowly losing their mind after running to, like, 50 different identical C platforms to pick up their, like, their 53rd treasure chart, and they still haven't found the big wallet yet, or the grappling hook.
Oh. Yeah.
So, the plus side of, I guess, it's not a problem when you're playing it in the intended way, but, like, you really can't do much without having some of the items, like the grapple hook or the bombs or stuff like that. And just the fact that there's just so many chests that are just, like, non-rewards. Like, I don't know, I kind of thought about this, like, whenever you're watching a randomizer, I feel like there are more just silver rupee rewards than there are, like, all non-rupee rewards combined.
Yeah, a lot of the treasure maps you get in this game just kind of take you to more rupees, and I guess that's good, you know, for some of the end game stuff, but, like, after a certain point, I feel like if you're at the point where you're just, like, getting the treasure charts stuff to fill out, like, a completion checklist, like, you don't need the rupees.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice if they could vary up the rewards a little bit more.
Yeah, because it's like, I feel like the treasure charts are literally just like, you do something to get, you do something and you don't get a reward, you get a thing that you have to do something. You get, like, a key to do the next step to get the reward.
Yeah, it's
and
like
you do that like 50 times.
Like every other Zelda game would just give you the heart piece, but here it's like there's a middle step.
Yeah.
I will say though, for my money, this game did it a lot better than Skyward Sword. Because here, you know, okay, maybe not a lot better, but here it's like, oh, it's a cool treasure map. Like, we're gonna use this to find the treasure. In Skyward Sword, it's just like, oh, you hit a cube, and now there's a treasure chest in the sky you can get. I mean, it's not that different, but just, I don't know.
I mean, at the very least, the treasure charts add some extra minor challenge of, like, you still have to track down where it is. It doesn't just show up on the map.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they were
There's
good
like a
fit
little
for
mini
the
game of like figuring out what the island looks like and kind of piecing it together.
Well, they were a good fit for the Wii U as well because in the original version, obviously, you didn't have a second screen to look at, but here you can display your treasure maps on the gamepad, and if you have a treasure chart open and you're within proximity of the chart, you'll show up on the map, and you can use that in real time to like guide yourself to the spot where the treasure is, as opposed to the GameCube original, where you had to be constantly like pausing and unpausing the game to see if you were like lined up properly.
Hey man, Tingle Tuner.
Oh yeah, you're right. This remake sucks. No Tingle Tuner.
Yeah, man.
Oh
Yeah, we completely forgot to talk about that in part 4. Oops. Yeah, the original version of Wind Waker had connectivity with the Game Boy Advance via an in-game item called the Tingle Tuner, which you could use to like you could pay Tingle a certain amount of money to like give you a bomb that you could detonate, or like I think he could sell you like healing items or like magic restorative items for a price, and
or make you float through the, just like hover.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, he could
Ocarina of Time hover.
Yeah, just like walk on air. That was cool. I forgot about that. Which
Just cheese stuff with it.
Yeah, I abused that extensively the first time I played this game. That I had so much fun with the Tingle Tuner.
Oh yeah.
And they took it out for this and replaced it with Miiverse.
Yeah, you get your buddy on the Tingle Tuner just constantly interrupting your sailing, going, "Hey!"
Oh yeah.
See,
It made you put your sail away and stop to look at it for 2 seconds.
That dastardly Tingle.
I was the kind of friend that would bomb them.
Yeah, that too.
Bombs.
By the way, the Tingle Tuner chests are still in the randomizer, but you they show up in the they changed it so that they show up on the map when you have the compass, and you make them appear by just bombing them. So
I only ever got to use the Tingle Tuner with myself.
Oh right, and something else this is the last thing I'll say about the randomizer, but something else neat I just remembered it does is that it actually puts the Swift Sail in the obviously the randomizer is like a hack of the original game on emulator. And it actually,
it puts the Swift Sail in the GameCube version?
It actually puts the Swift Sail in. I think it might even be faster than it is in the HD version.
Oh, Lord.
And it also does the thing where it speeds up Wind Waker songs.
Wow.
By
Cool.
not making, yeah.
So it really is meant to be speedrun then.
Pretty much. I mean, I think
we actually get to
randomizers
fight.
are kind of meant to be like, you know, it's like a fun thing to see how fast you can do it.
I think you've been talking about that randomizer for like 90% of this part.
Yeah, just called it, wow.
And yeah, I died in the Wind Waker.
Yep. Just name this episode, we talk about a randomizer for 20 minutes and then Joe dies.
Part 6, even worse than last time.
Runs over.
Hey, at least we didn't go on about yep, there it is. At least we didn't go on about a totally unrelated game for the whole episode this time.
Yeah. I'll accept it. Anywho, see you next week for the conclusion of Dragon Roost Cavern.
Hey.
Bye.